The twin suns burned over the city, their light falling on walls made of black stone. Smoke and dust hung in the air, mixing with the smell of oil, sweat, and fear. The city's heart was the slave market, a place where beings from 100 worlds were bought and sold like tools. Cages of iron lined the square. Inside them, the broken and the defeated waited with hollow eyes. Some were chained, some were wounded, and some had already stopped hoping. Traders shouted loudly, showing their slaves to the crowd. Buyers laughed, pointed, and argued over prices. Among all those cages, one was different. Inside sat a girl. She was small and thin, her skin marked with scars. Her clothes were torn, her hair tangled. She did not raise her head, not even when the traders mocked her. To them, she was worthless. Her spirit looked broken, her body weak. The trader shouted to the crowd, "Look here, a failed slave, worthless, useless, 10 credits only." The market roared with laughter. 10 credits? One alien sneered. That is the price of rusted metal, not a slave. Even 10 is too much, another laughed. She should be given away for free. The girl did not react. She had heard it all before. For years she had been beaten, used, and thrown aside. Hope had left her long ago. To her, this was normal, just another day of shame. She waited silently, like an object, like trash left to rot. Then the laughter changed. It began with silence, sudden and heavy. The crowd parted slowly, their voices fading, heads turned, steps echoed on the stone floor. A figure walked into the market. It was a man, not just any man, a human. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Some feared them, others mocked them, but all remembered their strange history, fragile bodies, yet fierce hearts. Few dared to deal with them, and fewer still walked alone into a slave market. The human wore a long coat, dust clinging to its edges. His boots were old but strong. His eyes were sharp, scanning the cages one by one. He moved with calm confidence, like someone who feared nothing in this place of cruelty. The traders whispered, the crowd murmured. What is a human doing here? Does he want to buy a warrior? A servant? Maybe he is mad. The human stopped in front of the girl's cage. The trader laughed nervously. Not this one, human. She is broken. Useless. 10 credits only, and still no one wants her. Perhaps you want something stronger. But the human said nothing. He looked at the girl. For the first time in years, she felt someone's eyes on her. Not with disgust, not with mockery, but with something different. His gaze was steady, heavy, as if he was searching for something beneath her scars. The crowd laughed louder. Is he serious? A human wasting time on trash? Pay 10 credits for that? Madness. The trader tried again. Human, listen to me. This one cannot fight, cannot work, cannot serve. Even animals are better. Do not waste your money. The human's voice broke the noise. It was calm, deep, and certain. I'll take her. The market froze. The trader blinked. What? I said, I'll take her. The human reached into his coat and placed 10 credits on the table. The coins clinked like thunder. The crowd exploded with laughter. He bought her. A fool. The human is truly mad. 10 credits for trash. What a joke. The trader grinned, greedy for any coin. He opened the cage, pulling the girl out roughly. Her weak legs stumbled, but before she could fall, the human caught her arm gently. His hand was firm, but not cruel. The girl stared up at him, confused. No one had touched her like that in years. No whip, no strike, only steady hands. The trader laughed. She's yours now, human. Don't come crying when she dies in 2 days, the human ignored. Ed him. He wrapped his coat around the girl's shoulders and led her out of the market. The crowd shouted after them, mocking and laughing, but the human never looked back. The girl walked in silence, her body weak, her heart heavy with questions. She did not understand. Why would anyone pay even 10 credits for her? Why would anyone choose her when so many others were stronger, prettier, more useful? She wanted to speak, but her voice had been silent for too long. The words died before reaching her lips. Yet one thought burned inside her. The streets outside the market were loud and dirty, filled with shouting vendors and strange smells, but the girl barely noticed any of it. Her thin body trembled as she walked beside the human. His coat still rested on her shoulders, warm against the cold wind. Every step felt unreal. For years she had known only cages, chains, and cruel voices. Now, suddenly, she was walking free. The laughter of the crowd still rang in her ears. To them, she was trash. To the trader, she was only worth 10 credits. So why had this human chosen her? She dared to glance up at him. His face was hard and weathered, his jaw set like stone. His eyes scanned the street, always watching, always alert. He did not smile, he did not speak, but his grip on her arm was careful, not cruel. Finally, her dry voice cracked through the silence. Why? The word was small, almost broken. She was not sure if he even heard it, but his eyes turned toward her, sharp and unreadable. Because you are alive, he said simply. Alive. The word struck her like a blade and a balm at once. For so long she had felt less than alive, more shadow than person, and yet this human spoke the word as if it were enough reason. They walked on until the market's noise faded behind them. The human led her into a quiet alley where an old transport waited. Its metal sides were scratched, its engines worn, but it was solid and ready to fly. He opened the hatch and helped her inside. She expected to be chained again, locked away like always, but instead, he guided her to a seat and handed her a flask of water. Drink, he ordered. Her hands shook as she raised it to her lips. The water was cool, pure, unlike the filthy drops she had been given in the cages. It spilled down her chin, but he said nothing. He only waited until she was finished. Then he gave her something else, a small packet of food, soft bread. Her eyes widened. She could not remember the last time she had eaten real food. Eat, he said. She hesitated. Kindness was a weapon she had never seen before. Was it a trick? Was he fattening her like livestock for some cruel purpose? Her mistrust screamed at her to refuse. But hunger was stronger. She took a bite. The bread was dry, but it tasted like heaven. As she ate, he started the ship. The engines rumbled, lifting them slowly into the sky. The city of chains grew smaller beneath them, swallowed by dust and smoke. For the first time in years, she was leaving that place. Yet fear still gripped her. She pulled the coat tighter around her small body and dared to ask again, "What? What do you want from me?" The human's hands moved across the controls. He did not look at her when he answered. "Nothing. Nothing." She blinked, confused. No one wanted nothing. Masters always wanted something, obedience, work, blood, or worse. To hear that word now felt impossible. "Then why?" she whispered. He glanced at her, and for the first time she thought she saw something in his eyes. Not hardness, not coldness, but a spark of something else. Respect, pity, hope? She could not tell. "I saw you," he said. "That was enough." She turned her face away, tears burning her eyes. No master had ever spoken such words. To be seen, not as trash, not as broken, but simply as someone who mattered. It shook her to the core. The ship broke through the clouds, stars filling the window. The galaxy stretched wide and endless before them. She stared at the stars, almost afraid of their beauty. Freedom was too big, too strange. The silence between them was heavy, but not cruel. Slowly, her body relaxed, exhaustion pulling at her bones. She leaned back in the seat, eyes drifting closed. For the first time in years, she slept without chains. But the galaxy does not stay silent for long. As the ship crossed into open space, a sharp beeping cut through the calm. A warning light flashed red on the console. The human cursed under his breath and adjusted the controls. The girl woke, startled. "What is it?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "Trouble," he said. On the scanner, a group of ships appeared, small, fast, and armed. Raiders. They had seen the human's old transport and decided it would be easy prey. The girl's heart pounded. Her first taste of freedom, and already danger hunted them. She curled up, fear clawing at her. The human, however, only narrowed his eyes. He tightened his hands on the controls, calm but ready. "Stay down," he told her. The raider ships closed in, weapons glowing red. Their laughter echoed over the comms, cruel and sharp. "Easy target," one voice sneered. "Old ship, weak engines. This will be fun." The girl trembled, expecting to be abandoned. That was how it always went. When danger came, the weak were thrown aside, but the human did not move away from her. He stood between her and the threat, his body like a wall. The girl stared at him, her fear mixing with something strange. Could it be trust? The raiders fired their first shots. The ship shook violently. Sparks flew across the console. The human's jaw tightened. "Hold on," he growled. And in that moment, the girl realized something terrifying and wonderful. This human had not saved her to throw her away. He would fight for her. He would fight with her. For the first time in her broken life, she was not just property. She was someone worth protecting. The raiders circled closer, their guns flashing in the dark. The human's eyes burned with fire. And the girl's heart whispered a question she could not yet answer. The raider attack passed into silence. The human's old ship groaned but still held together. Smoke curled from the panels, but the engines pushed on. The raider ships, beaten back by his sharp maneuvers and hidden skill, had finally retreated into the darkness. The girl sat curled in her seat, the human's coat wrapped tight around her. Her heart still pounded in her chest. She had expected death, chains, or worse. But once again, the human had stood between her and danger. He had fought with calm fire, like a man used to facing storms. Now the stars stretched wide outside the window, silent and endless. The alarms had gone quiet, yet inside her, another storm raged. Her eyes closed, and memories clawed their way back. She remembered the day she was taken. Her world had been small and peaceful once, filled with green fields and soft winds. She had been a child then, running free. But that ended when the ships came. Dark ships, falling from the sky like predators. Soldiers stormed the villages, burning, capturing, killing. She had been dragged from her home, her screams lost in the fire. Her parents had fought, but they were struck down. She never saw them again. That was the day her chains began. Years blurred together after that. She had been sold and resold, passed from one cruel hand to another. Some masters used her as a servant, others as a tool, others as a toy for their cruelty. She learned quickly that her body was weak and her spirit weaker. To resist meant pain. To speak meant punishment. So she became silent. She lowered her eyes, obeyed, endured. Her back carried scars of whips. Her mind carried scars deeper still. She had prayed once for rescue, but no rescue came. Hope was dangerous. It only made the pain sharper when it was crushed. So she killed hope inside HFY, or burying it deep where even she could not reach it. By the time she was thrown into that last cage at the market, she was no longer sure if she was even human anymore. She felt like an object, hollow and empty. 10 credits. That was her value now. Her eyes opened again. She glanced at the human sitting across the cockpit. His hands rested on the controls, his eyes steady on the stars ahead. He had not chained her. He had not shouted at her. He had not even asked for service or obedience. Instead, he had given her food, water, warmth. Why? The question burned inside her. She was not worth saving. She was not worth 10 credits. She was not worth anything. And yet, he had chosen her. Slowly, she found her voice again, thin and broken. "You don't know what I am." The human glanced at her, one eyebrow raised. "And what are you?" She swallowed hard, her throat dry. "Broken, used, worthless. You should have left me." His eyes locked on hers, steady and unshaken. "You're wrong." Her chest tightened. No one had ever spoken those words to her. Masters had called her trash, slave, waste, but never wrong. The human turned his gaze back to the stars. His voice was calm but heavy. "They laughed because they only saw chains. But I saw you, not what was done to you, not what they said you were. I saw someone alive." Alive, again that word. It struck like fire through the darkness of her thoughts. She shook her head, tears threatening. "You don't understand. They broke me. I have nothing left." The human's jaw clenched. His voice was low but fierce. "I've seen broken. You are not it." She fell silent, staring at him in shock. His words hit harder than any whip. For the first time in years, she felt a tiny spark inside, fragile and dangerous. Was it hope? The ship drifted through the quiet dark. The human finally spoke again. "Tell me your name." The question froze her. A name? She had not spoken her true name in years. Masters had stripped it away, replacing it with numbers, insoles, and orders. A name meant a person. A slave had no personhood. She lowered her head. I don't remember." The human studied her, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded once. "Then you'll remember, when you are ready. Until then, you are free to choose what to be called." Free, another impossible word. Her lips trembled. Why do you care? For a moment, the human said nothing. The silence stretched, filled with the hum of the ship. Then he spoke softly, almost as if to himself. Because once, someone cared for me when I thought I was worthless, and it changed everything. The girl's breath caught. His eyes were distant, shadowed by his own memories. She wondered what chains he had carried, what pain had shaped him into this man who now sat across from her. She leaned back, tears slipping silently down her face. For the first time in years, she cried not from pain, but from the strange ache of being seen. The stars beyond the window seemed less cold, less far away. The galaxy was still cruel, still full of chains, but maybe, just maybe, she was not alone in it anymore. The human did not press her, did not demand she speak more. He only let her rest. But inside her broken chest, a quiet storm began to rise. Memories of chains weighed heavy. But alongside them, for the first time in years, something else stirred. Not hope yet, not strength, but a question. The old ship drifted quietly through the stars. Its metal body groaned from the last battle, but it kept flying. Inside, silence filled the cockpit. The human worked at the controls, his sharp eyes fixed on the scanners. The girl sat behind him, clutching his coat around her thin body, her mind still tangled in fear and memory. She thought the danger had passed after the raiders fled, but the galaxy was never safe. Somewhere out there, always, new hunters waited. The silence broke with a sudden alarm. A warning light flashed red. The human's jaw tightened. They're back. The girl froze. The raiders? He nodded once. They didn't give up. They're tracking us. Her chest tightened, breath coming fast. Of course they hadn't left. Raiders never stopped until they had stripped everything, and this ship was weak. She knew what would happen. Capture, chains, death. It always ended the same. Her hands shook. We can't fight them. You should leave me. I'll only slow you down. The human turned his head, his eyes sharp. I don't leave people behind. Before she could speak again, the ship rocked violently. Blaster fire slammed into the hull. Sparks flew, lights flickered. The human cursed and pulled the controls hard, sending the ship spinning. The girl was thrown against the wall, gasping. The comm system crackled with cruel laughter. Human, give us the slave and maybe we let you live. The girl's blood ran cold. They wanted her. Even here, even now, she was still just a thing to be taken. The human answered with silence. His hands moved fast, guiding the ship between asteroids. The raiders fired again, chasing like wolves after prey. The girl clung to the seat, terror squeezing her chest. She hated herself for it. This fear, this weakness, always hiding, always helpless. She had been trained to submit, to accept chains. But watching the human fight stirred something inside her, sharp and painful. He wasn't like the others. He didn't give up. He didn't throw her away. He fought. Another blast shook the ship. Smoke filled the cockpit. The girl coughed, eyes burning. She saw the human's face, lit by firelight, calm, focused, unbroken. Her heart pounded. Something inside her snapped. No, she whispered. She stood, unsteady but determined, moving to the weapons panel. The human glanced at her, surprised. What are you doing? Her hands shook, but she pressed them to the console. Helping. You don't know how. Then teach me. The raiders closed in, their ships circling like vultures. The girl's hands hovered over the controls. For a moment, fear screamed at her to stop, to hide, to curl into silence again. But another voice inside her, faint and new, pushed back. Fight. The human's eyes studied her. Then he nodded once, quick and sharp. Targeting system, right there. Aim, don't think. I'll keep us steady. She swallowed, focusing on the blinking lights. Her fingers moved clumsily, selecting a target. Her whole body shook. She had never been trusted with power before, never been allowed to choose anything, let alone aim a weapon. Now, the human said. Her hand slammed the trigger. A burst of light shot from the ship, striking one of the raiders. The enemy ship spun, fire exploding across its wings. The girl gasped, her heart thundered. She had done that. She, the worthless slave, had struck back. The raiders roared over the comms. You'll pay for that! More blasts shook the hull, but her fear was different now. It was still there, but mixed with something else, something fierce. She fired again. Another shot streaked across the dark, forcing a raider to pull away. The human's lips curled in the smallest hint of a smile. Good. Again. Her whole body felt alive, burning with energy she didn't know she had. Years of silence, years of chains, all of it poured into her hands as she fired. For the first time, she was not the victim. She was not trash. She was fighting. The raiders pulled back, realizing their easy prey was not so easy anymore. One of them cursed over the comms. "She's no slave, she's a weapon!" The girl's breath caught. The words echoed inside her. Not a slave. A weapon. The fight raged on, the human flying with sharp skill, the girl firing with desperate fury. Together they pushed the raiders back, and finally, after a last burst of fire, the raider ships broke formation and fled into the dark. Silence returned. The alarms dimmed. The ship floated bounded, but alive. The girl stared at her trembling hands, smoke and sweat on her skin. Her chest heaved with heavy breaths. She felt weak, exhausted, but also something else. A strange fire still burned inside her. The human looked at her, his eyes steady. See? Not broken. Her lips parted, but no words came. She wanted to deny it, to say she was still nothing, still worthless. But her heart knew the truth. In that battle, she had not been a slave. She had not been a cage. She had been free. Tears slid down her cheeks, but she did not hide them. This time, they were not only tears of pain, they were something new. For the first time in years, she felt it. Strength. And though the road ahead was still dark and full of chains, she whispered a promise to herself. Never again will I be only what they made me. The ship floated through the stars, scarred but still alive. The battle was over. The girl sat in silence, her hands still trembling from the fight. Smoke drifted faintly in the air, and the hum of the engines filled the quiet. Her chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. She kept staring at her fingers, remembering the flashes of light, the sound of enemy ships breaking apart under her aim. She had fought. She had struck back. The memory burned like fire in her blood. She was not sure who she was anymore. A slave? A fighter? Something in between? The human sat across from her, calm as always. His face was shadowed in the dim glow of the cockpit lights. He had not spoken since the battle ended. Only his steady breathing filled the silence. Finally, she broke. Why? The word came sharp, cutting the silence in half. Her eyes burned as she looked at him. Why me? Why buy me? Why fight for me? The human turned his head, meeting her gaze. His eyes were steady, unflinching, like stone. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he spoke. Because you are not what they said you were. Her throat tightened. But I am broken. No, he said firmly. You are hurt. There's a difference. Broken things cannot rise again, but hurt things can heal, and you are healing already. She shook her head, anger mixing with pain. You don't know what I've been through. The chains, the whips, the things they made me do. I am nothing, worthless. 10 credits. That is what I am worth. The human leaned forward, his voice low and sharp. 10 credits was not your worth. It was their mistake. The galaxy does not know how to measure true value. Her eyes widened. She had never heard anyone speak like that. Masters measured worth in strength, beauty, obedience. She had none of those left. Yet he looked at her as if she carried something invisible, something she herself could not see. He leaned back, his gaze distant. You want to know the truth? I was once where you are. Not in chains, but in another kind of cage. Her breath caught. You? He nodded slowly. Before the war ended, I fought for a commander who cared nothing for lives. To him, soldiers were numbers, tools, weapons to burn. I watched friends die while he counted victories. I thought I was worthless too, just another piece of meat to be thrown into fire. His jaw tightened, his voice grew darker. One night I was left behind, wounded, forgotten. My commander moved on. The enemy came and I thought it was the end, but someone found me. A stranger, a woman with nothing to gain. She pulled me from the dirt, fed me, gave me a reason to keep breathing. She told me the same thing I tell you now. Your worth is not decided by others. The girl's eyes blurred with tears. She pressed her hands to her chest, feeling the ache there. What happened to her? She whispered. The human's eyes lowered. She died, but not before saving me. Not before planting that truth inside me. I swore I would carry it, and when I saw you in that cage, I remembered her words. Silence wrapped around them. Only the stars outside seemed to breathe. The girl's voice cracked. And you believe that? Even about me? He looked at her, his eyes fierce. Especially about you. Her tears fell freely now. She wanted to deny it, to bury herself again in the safety of despair. But his words were a fire she could not put out. They burned away her excuses, her chains, her self-hatred. The human stood and walked toward the back of the ship. He pulled out a small bundle and tossed it gently onto her lap. She opened it slowly. Inside was a simple shirt and pants. Clean, plain, nothing fancy. You're not a slave anymore, he said. Wear those, not chains. Her breath trembled. She touched the fabric with shaking hands. Such a small thing, yet it felt heavier than any chain she had carried. To be offered clothes, not rags. To be treated as a person, not property. She whispered, "What if I fail you?" The human's face softened, just slightly. Then you fail, and you rise again. That is what living means. Her chest ached with something she could not name. Pain, yes, but also hope, sharp and terrifying. She looked down at the clothes, then back at him. For the first time in years, her lips formed a true smile. Small, weak, but real. The human nodded once, like he had been waiting for it. Then he turned back to the controls, his voice calm again. Rest. Tomorrow, we move on. The galaxy is wide, and danger waits. But you will not face it in chains. She pressed the clothes to her chest, her tears falling silently. For so long she had believed her worth was less than nothing. But tonight, under the cold stars, one truth echoed louder than chains, louder than pain. The ship sailed through the endless dark, patched and scarred but still alive. Days passed. The girl wore the simple clothes the human had given her. No more rags, no chains. Every time she looked at herself, she felt a strange shock, like she was seeing a stranger in the mirror. Not a slave, not yet free, but changing. The human kept busy repairing the ship. Sparks flew as he worked with steady hands, fixing wires, hammering broken panels. He hardly spoke, but his silence was never cruel. When he looked at her, it was not with disgust, not with ownership, but with expectation. One morning he tossed something small toward her. She caught it clumsily. It was a training knife. Its blade was dull, made for practice. She stared at it in confusion. What do I do with this? Learn, he said simply. Her chest tightened. She shook her head. I can't fight. You already did, he reminded her, with the raiders. That was different. I was just lucky. The human stepped closer, his gaze sharp. Luck doesn't fire 3 times. That was not luck. That was you. You only need to remember what you already have inside. Her hands trembled as she held the knife. She had never been trusted with a weapon before. Masters gave her rags, chains, and orders, not tools of power. A knife was dangerous. A knife meant choice. The human pulled out his own blade, sharp and shining. Come. He showed her how to stand, how to hold her arms, how to move her feet. The first steps felt clumsy. She stumbled, dropped the knife, almost tripped over her own legs. The human said nothing. He only made her pick it up again. Hour after hour she practiced. Her muscles screamed, her breath came in gasps. Sweat poured down her skin. Every mistake felt heavy, every failure sharp. But the human's steady voice pushed her on. Again. Stand firm. Don't fear the strike. For the first time in her life, someone was not beating her for weakness. Someone was building her strength. At night, when training ended, she collapsed onto her seat, exhausted. But instead of pain and despair, she felt a strange pride. Her hands were blistered, her arms sore, but she had survived each lesson, and deep inside, something burned brighter every day. The flame. Weeks passed. She grew faster, Sikishwam, Harper. Her strikes no longer shook with fear. Her feet moved with balance. She could see the faintest hint of respect in the human's eyes when she trained, and each time, she saw it, her chest filled with fire. But the galaxy was watching too. Rumors spread in the shadows of trading posts and backwater planets. Whispers of a slave girl who fought beside a human. Whispers of a broken one who rose again. Some laughed at the story, some feared it, but others wanted to test it. It began on a dusty moon. The human had landed to trade for fuel and supplies. The girl followed him through the crowded bazaar, her head low but her steps firm. She no longer walked like prey. She no longer moved like someone waiting for a whip. But predators noticed her anyway. 3 thugs cornered them near the fuel station, their skin rough, their teeth sharp. One spat on the ground and sneered. So this is the famous human and his little pet. 10 credits, wasn't she? Let's see if she's worth more now. The girl froze. The old fear clawed at her. She saw cages, whips, laughter. Her breath came fast. She wanted to hide. But then she felt the knife at her belt, the training blade the human had let her carry, now sharpened for real. She looked at the human. He did not move. He only watched her, his eyes steady, as if asking a silent question. What will you do? Her hands shook, her knees trembled, but the fire inside her pushed back against the fear. She stepped forward. Leave us, she said, her voice rough but clear. The thugs laughed. One swung a heavy club. Or what? Her body moved before her mind could doubt. She ducked under the swing, her blade flashing. The thug yelped as a shallow cut marked his arm. The others rushed, but she was faster than she thought possible. Training took over, her feet shifting, her knife striking, her body flowing with a rhythm she never knew she had. The fight was messy, clumsy, not perfect, but it was hers. And when the last thug stumbled back, clutching his wound, their eyes no longer mocked. They feared. The girl stood panting, her knife steady in her grip. For the first time in public, she was not prey. She was a fighter. The thugs spat curses and fled into the crowd. The girl's chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. She turned to the human, fear in her eyes. I didn't mean to. But he only nodded once. Good. Her lips parted in shock. Good? You stood, he said. You chose. That is enough. Her knees almost gave way under the weight of his words. For years she had been told she was nothing. Now she had stood her ground and someone said it was enough. As they walked back to the ship, whispers followed them. Eyes watched. The galaxy had seen. The story would spread. The girl did not know what tomorrow would bring. More enemies, more battles, more chains trying to bind her again. But as she touched the knife at her belt, she felt the flame inside her grow stronger. She was no longer just a broken slave, she was something more. And soon, the galaxy would know it. The galaxy did not forget. Rumors spread like fire. Of a human who bought a worthless slave for 10 credits. And of that slave who now carried a blade. Who stood unbroken in markets where once she had crawled. The story reached ears that hated such whispers. Her old masters. They remembered her face. To them, she was not a person. Only property they had lost, a thing that belonged to them. And now, hearing of her freedom, their pride burned with rage. They wanted her back, not for her value, but to crush her spirit again, to show the galaxy no slave could ever rise. And so they came. The attack fell without warning. The human ship had landed on a barren outpost to trade for parts. The girl stepped outside to breathe the cold air, her knife at her side. For the first time in her life, she felt steady, not broken, not hiding. Then the shadows came. Dozens of armored soldiers surrounded the outpost, their banners marked with the symbol she remembered all too well, the mark of the house that had once owned her, the masters who had laughed as she was beaten, who had sold her for 10 credits. Her blood froze. From the largest ship, a figure stepped down. Tall, cruel, dressed in gold-lined armor. His voice was sharp, dripping with poison. So, the trash still lives. Her knees wanted to buckle, her throat to close. Old chains rattled in her memory. She saw again the cage, the whip, the laughter. Fear screamed in her bones. The human stepped beside her, his coat shifting in the wind, his eyes burning. She is not yours. The master sneered. She is mine, always mine. I will buy her back for what she is worth. Nothing. The soldiers laughed. The sound was like knives in her ears. For a moment she almost believed them again. 10 credits, trash, broken. But then, she felt the knife at her side, the flame in her chest, the memory of standing against raiders, the human's voice. You are not broken. She straightened, her hand steady on the blade. For the first time she looked her master in the eye. I am not yours, she said. Her voice was rough but strong. Not now. Not ever again. The master's face twisted in rage. Then you die as nothing. He raised his hand. Soldiers advanced. The human's blade flashed into his hand, his stance ready. "Stand with me," he said. Her heart thundered. Fear roared inside her. But stronger than fear was fire. She drew her knife. The battle exploded across the outpost. Soldiers swarmed like wolves. The human fought like a storm, his blade cutting through armor, his body moving with deadly precision. Every strike was sharp, every step certain. The girl fought beside him. At first clumsy, then sharper, faster. Her blade struck arms, legs, finding weak points. Her fear turned into fury. The years of pain, the years of silence, every cut was a scream of defiance. She fell once, a soldier's blade nearly piercing her, but the human caught her arm, pulling her up. "Stand," he growled. "Don't give them back your chains." She rose again. She struck harder. She moved not like prey, but like fire unleashed. The soldiers fell back, surprised. Whispers rippled through their ranks. This was no broken slave, this was something else. Finally, only the master remained. His golden armor gleamed, his eyes burning with hate. "You think you are free?" he snarled. "You think a human's pity makes you worth more than trash?" The girl stepped forward, her knife steady. The human watched, but did not stop her. This was her fight now. "I am free," she said, "and my worth is mine." The master roared and charged. His blade swung down with crushing force. She dodged, barely, the edge slicing her arm. Pain flared, but she did not fall. She struck back, her knife cutting across his armor. Sparks flew. He swung again, faster, heavier. Each blow carried years of chains, years of cruelty, but she moved with fire, her steps light, her will unbroken. At last she saw the opening. His arm lifted too high. Her blade drove forward, deep into the gap in his armor. The master gasped. His eyes went wide with shock. He stumbled back, collapsing to the ground. Silence fell. The soldiers watched in disbelief, their master defeated by the slave they had called worthless. The girl stood over him, her chest heaving, her knife red. Her hand shook, but not from fear, from freedom. The human stepped beside her, his eyes steady, proud. "She was never worth 10 credits, he said to the soldiers. "She was worth more than your entire house." The soldiers lowered their weapons. Without their master, their fight was gone. One by one, they fled into the shadows. The girl dropped her knife, her legs weak. She fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. But these tears were not chains. They were fire, cleansing, and new. The human knelt beside her, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "You chose your path. You are free." She looked at him, her voice trembling but clear. "Then let the galaxy hear this truth. I am not trash. I am not broken. I am more than what they made me." The human nodded, his gaze fierce, and that is what they will remember. As the suns rose over the barren outpost, the girl stood tall, the human at her side. The galaxy had laughed at her price, but today she had written her true worth in fire and blood, and no chain would ever hold her again.